Hello, and welcome to the History of Black Speculative Fiction. I want to thank you for being here today, and thank you, Right Hive, for inviting me to be a presentator today. So I will jump right in and introduce myself. My name is Tonja K. I'm a Black speculative fiction writer. I'm an acquiring editor at Fire Literary Magazine. I won the 2024 Minnesota BIPOC Emerging Writer Award in fiction for my short story, Thunder Gone Fire. And I am the founder of Voices of Color, an online cohort dedicated to Black voices. So today we're going to be talking about Black speculative fiction and the many facets of what that means. So I'll give you some background, where it's been, where it's going, and how you can create it for yourself as well. Speculative fiction is a literary supergenre that encompasses a number of different genres of fiction, which each speculative element is based on the conjecture that does not exist in the real world, sometimes called what if books. Speculative literature changes the laws of what's real or possible as we know them in our current society, and then speculates on the outcome. And this is just a visual. So you have speculative as the umbrella genre, and within that you have fantasy, horror, science fiction, and some historical, right? And every author will have their own unique blend of what makes their work. So then what is Black speculative fiction? It's that same definition that I gave you just a bit ago, but it's focused on the experiences and perspectives of Black people and the African diaspora. So then you get the same image here, but then you see Blackness that trickles into each of these other elements and then informs what the speculative genre will be then, because this is the center focal point where the Black experience dominates and revolves around Black characters. So, some common themes of Black speculative fiction can be race, power, identity, and social justice. These are all very integral and unique to the Black experience across the diaspora. And this is how you can make your speculative fiction really unique and shine. This is not all encompassing. So if you do want to explore other themes as well, that is okay. But these are like the cornerstone themes that pop up in the majority of Black speculative fiction works. And some common misconceptions are Black people don't read Black speculative fiction or speculative fiction at all, and that Black authors aren't interested in writing speculative literature. There's this big conversation about what the market needs and what traditional publishing is willing to push as far as Black stories, how many are on their agenda, how many of the same types of stories are they willing to publish, and that's all drawn by what they consider reader demand. And if Black readers are not looked at as wanting speculative fiction, then it's not something that they will push. But that is definitely a huge misconception. And with stories like N.K. Jemisin's The Broken Earth series, and also with Tomi Adeyeme's series that really burst the doors open and let the market see that Black speculative fiction is not only profitable, but people demand it as well and enjoy it. So where it's been, I'm going to give you guys a little bit of like a history of speculative literature, Black speculative literature, and go from there. So, and a timeline. So, if you look at research online, they will tell you that the first piece of Black speculative fiction appeared sometime in the 19th century with The Huts of America by Martin R. Delaney. However, if we use our critical thinking skills, we can see that that is very much untrue because stories did not just originate in the 19th century for Black people telling fantastical tales. This is a misconception as well. But we do not know when the true origin date is, just like we wouldn't know with any other racial group when did their speculative stories begin truly. But this is what we would find in resources. So they say the first Black science fiction novel published by an African American author can be dated back to 1859, with Martin R. Delaney published The Huts of America. And the first speculative short story published in a magazine was Gopher Grapevine by Charles W. Chestnut. So stories are these fluid, living, breathing things that follow humans as they move and migrate throughout the world. And just like the river flows, so does humanity. Where people go, their ideas, stories, songs are carried with them. Creation stories were some of the first tales that humans spun to explain themselves and the world around them. These stories later morphed into fables, mythology, lore, that are staples in culture and tradition. And I think it's very much human nature to ask that question, what if? And in that first definition I gave you, that is exactly what speculative fiction does. It asks you that question, and then the writer there explores it. So that lets us know that speculative fiction, and especially Black speculative fiction, has been around for a very, very long time. So this is an example of humans moving and bringing their stories with them. In the Great Migration, it brought Black tradition, culture, myth, and lore throughout the entire United States. So in 1910 to 1970, Black Americans moved from the South into the Northwest, into the Midwest, and they brought their traditions and their cultures and their stories with them. You can see this very broadly, like where I'm from, when I was born in Illinois and Chicago, we have a lot of the same ways of speaking. Folklore that came and originated from the South. So those stories then inform what I write in my Black speculative literature. This is a quick video on human migration. So through that video, you're able to see how humans moved throughout the continents. And they didn't just move their bodies, they brought their stories and their beliefs with them as well. And that is how we know that Black speculative literature has been around the world and continues to grow and spread today. So, why is it important to understand that Black people have always existed in these realms of Black speculative fiction? Because Black literature is often looked at as trauma, and that Black stories are only speaking to Black people. So, there's a lot of conversations out there in the reader communities that people are not wanting to pick up Black books because they think they are centered around trauma only. And that is very, very untrue. We have love stories, we have adventure, we have humor and comedy, and things that do not only center around Black trauma. But it is important to understand that even though those stories do exist, they are just as valid, they are just as important, and it's kind of contradictory to see that when it's put with another race, that these stories are then accepted. So if we're talking about issues of slavery, but it is someone with pale skin, those stories are easily digested by the masses, whereas if it's a Black story dealing with slavery, is then taboo and too traumatic for people to want to pick up. There are still people who think Blackness doesn't belong in speculative spaces. And I've had quite a few experiences with this myself. When I was first coming onto the online communities, I had a man tell me that if I wanted to write Black people into fantasy, they had to be there for a reason. And I just had to stop and really chew and take in what he was trying to tell me. And not only was it very extremely racist, but prejudiced as well, and saying that, white people are the default in these spaces and in science fiction and fantasy and horror, where Black people, their existence needs to be explained. And I think we've crossed a road where we are no longer explaining our existence. We are just existing. And whether someone likes it or not, we are here and we're not leaving, and our stories are going to be told. And so, with whiteness being considered the default, these stories are often met with vitriol. So, if you look at examples like Star Wars, The Wheel of Time, The Rings of Power, anytime that there are Black people in spaces that were traditionally white, it's looked at as if it's an invasion, as if it's a takeover, as if it's a pollution of something that these people loved. And the fans go absolutely crazy with their negativity. And this is why it's so important that these stories continue to be told. We are not going to sit back and be quiet and not exist. So I think with Black speculative fiction, it's not only literature, it's resistance, and that is definitely what we need today. So, from a global standpoint wise, it's also important. Sharing stories also helps people learn about others. So, you're going to demystify the Black experience through fiction, and then combating the global epidemic of anti-Blackness through fiction is able to help people live lives that they would never be able to live otherwise. And exposure is one of the main ways that you can stop erasure. So we're living in a time where people are banning books, where libraries are not able to have certain literature on their shelves, and critical race theory is not taught in schools where the entire system was built on racism. So if we push our stories forward in different formats, then that is making sure that our voices are not erased. Stories are meant to be shared. So where is it going? The future of Black speculative fiction. So more than ever, there's more publishing options. With the rise of self-publishing, Black authors are able to break real barriers and share their stories with the world. There are many Black small presses that are on the rise, as well as literary journals and magazines. There are more Black spaces for writers, and they're dedicated to making sure that we have space to grow and learn and be seen. There's publications and like bindery books and the Melanin Library, that is an online database where you can find Black books. And there's the group that I run called Voices of Color, which is the online cohort for Black writers, and many other small communities on Discord and Facebook. Through more authentic representation, we're able to share stories that wouldn't be published otherwise in the world. And then the cycle there continues with innovation in literature. So, with Black futurism, there are new genres cropping up every day, and Black futurism is a cultural movement and not only a speculative fiction genre. It's also an aesthetic that combines science fiction, fantasy, Black mythology, and reimagines the past, present, and future. It explores themes of identity, liberation, technology through art, music, literature, and other creative expressions, centering on the Black diaspora. So we have a very popular example of this with Wakanda, right? This movie, when it first came out, was such a movement and was such a breath of fresh air for Black people to be able to see themselves in these futuristic worlds where we not only are powerful and dominant and strong, but also able to be fantastical and magical as well. There are publications like the one that I work for, Fire Literary Magazine. We are dedicated to publishing bold voices in Black speculative fiction. So we want horror, science fiction, fantasy, and our submissions are open right now for our God and Monsters theme. I can take you to the submissions page super quick so you can see what we're looking for, stories that do not have depictions of sexual assault, needless brutalization of women and children, depictions of brutalization, abuse of people with disabilities, graphic abuse of animals. So stay away from these. Those are a big no. But you can take a look at this submission page at your leisure, and hopefully we'll see your stories come through. We love to publish new voices. So then, how do you create Black speculative fiction? I'm going to give you some few quick tips that you can take on your journey in creating this genre. One of the things that I like to focus on when creating Black speculative fiction is my message. I think this is the focal point of what I look for when I am starting a story. I consider what I want to talk about, the conversations that I want to have with the audience and other authors and other literature. Black speculative fiction has this really, really powerful opportunity to speak about the Black experience. And if you take that message and really hone in on it, then you're able to make something that feels fresh and unique. Then also culture. So if you think about the specific Black culture that you want to pull from, or multiple Black cultures you want to pull from, always doing that with respect and with research and making sure that you're being authentic and and representative in a good way of what this culture is. Um, so this is also a new unique chance for Black cultures to be created and to share stories that are specific and intentional. And then thinking about who your primary audience is. Um, because what Black speculative fiction is considered like an othered genre, since whiteness is centered, right? When you're considering who you're writing for, that's going to dictate how much you're willing to explain yourself. So like an example of this, I was writing a short story that mentioned chitlins. And if you don't know what chitlins are, they are an intestinal meat that is boiled and seasoned. And many people from the south of the US enjoy that food, right? So for other folks who are not a part of this culture, they would not know what chitlins are. So when I had readers asking me like, what is this? What is this? What is this? Was I willing to lean into the white gaze and explain what chitlins were? Or was I just going to place it there? And if you get it, you get it. If you don't, you don't. And that is completely up to you how much you are willing to explain yourself as a Black writer and how much you are willing to give over into the white gaze, if any. So here are some examples of Black speculative fiction. One of my favorite books of all time is The Fifth Season by N.K. Jemisin. I think she is a masterclass in what the genres are and how you can blend them together to create something that is fresh and unique and just honestly breathtaking. She is a highly decorated writer, and I suggest you read this if you have not already. So let's start with the end of the world, why don't we? Get it over with and move on to more interesting things. First, a personal ending. There is a thing she will think over and over in the days to come, as she imagines how her son died and tries to make sense of something so innately senseless. She will cover Uche's broken little body with a blanket, except his face, because he is afraid of the dark, and she will sit beside it numb, and she will pay no attention to the world that is ending outside. The world has already ended within her, and neither ending is for the first time. She's old hat at this by now. What she thinks then and thereafter is, but he was free. And it is her bitter, weary self that answers this almost question every time her bewildered, shocked self manages to produce it. He wasn't, not really, but now he will be. This story is phenomenal. Here she starts with a question, right? That's one of the things that people say it might be a taboo to do when opening up a story, but she does it here so effortlessly, and you're immediately drawn into the scene and this emotional turmoil of the character. And truly, truly, she is a masterclass. Another example is Beloved. This is like a very, very visceral story. When I read it the first time, I had to start and stop multiple times because it just really gets you in so many places, but it's so beautifully written. And this is Beloved by Toni Morrison. Ignore this typo here. 124 was spiteful, full of a baby's venom. The women in the house knew it, and so did the children. For each year, for years, each put up with the spite in its own way. But by 1873, Seth and her daughter, Denver, were its only victims. The grandmother, Baby Suggs, was dead, and the sons, Howard and Bulger, had run away by the time they were 13 years old. As soon as merely looking in a mirror shattered it, that was the signal for Bulger. As soon as two tiny handprints appeared in the cake, that was it for Howard. Neither boy waited to see more. Another kettleful of chickpeas smoking in a heap on the floor, soda crackers crumbled and strewn in a line next to the door sill. Nor did they wait for the relief periods, the weeks, months even, when nothing disturbed. No, each one fled at once. The moment the house committed what was for them the one insult not to be borne or witnessed a second time. Within 2 months, in the dead of winter, leaving their grandmother, Baby Suggs, Sethy, and her mother, and their little sister, Denver, all by themselves in the gray and white house on Bluestone Road. It didn't have a number then, because Cincinnati didn't stretch that far. In fact, Ohio had been called itself a state only 27 years when first one brother and then the next stuffed quilt packed on his hat into his hat, snatched up his shoes, and crept away from the lively spite of the house felt from them. And then we have Parable of the Sower by Octavia E. Butler. This is another really great example. She writes in this one in epistolary form, so in the form of journal entries, and this is a dystopian science fiction. Tuesday, June 30th, 2024. One of the astronauts on the largest Mars mission, has been killed. Something went wrong with her protective suit, and the rest of her team couldn't get her back to the shelter in time to save her. People here in the neighborhood are saying she had no business going to Mars anyway. All that money wasted on another crazy space trip when so many people here on Earth can't afford food, water, or shelter. The cost of water has gone up again, and I heard on the news today that more water peddlers are being killed. Peddlers sell water to squatters and the street poor, and to people who've managed to hold on to their homes but not pay their utility bills. Peddlers are being found with their throats cut and their money and their hand trucks stolen. Dad says water now costs several times as much as gasoline, but except for arsenics and the rich, most people are given up buying gasoline. No one I know uses a gas-powered car, truck, or cycle. Vehicles that are rusting in driveways and being cannibalized for metal and plastic. It's a lot harder to give up water. Fashion helps. You're supposed to be dirty now. If you're clean, you make a target of yourself. People think you're showing off, trying to be better than they are. Among the younger kids, being clean is a great way to start a fight. Corey won't let us stay dirty here in the neighborhood, but we all have filthy clothes to wear outside the walls. Even inside, my brothers throw dirt on themselves as soon as they get away from the house. It's better than getting beaten up all the time. So she paints a really fantastic dystopian world with just a few paragraphs, and you're immediately drawn into this setting. And then I have another example from The Song of the Living in a collection that I edited called If Fisk Could Speak. And this is all Black speculative fiction, and they're all stories that are flash fiction. When the trees start to smell sharp and crisp, I know the dead things are coming. That warning scent perfumes the air now. The fading summer gale bellows over a field of rolling wheat. Golden stalks bow to the forest like cracked swan necks. They waltz to the tune of pride and breath, peer away to the riotous rhythm of rot carried from the dead things shambling in a mass through the mountains. Below the craggy pass, craters blister up from the earth's surface, oozing brackish slime. We are mostly alone up here. The land too wild, the wind too full of teeth, the rivers rush brutal as tempest waves. Only small pockets of living rough the backwood to form small, fortified settlements. It's safer in the cities with their high electric walls, because when the trees tear up their roots and run, the dead things are close, and only the ancestors can save you. So, with those examples, look for messages, look for the themes and the conversations. Who is this particular audience that the writer is talking to? And are they centering the white gaze? Are they removing it? When you read other fiction that is Black speculative, go ahead and ask yourself those questions because then you can get a really good idea of what to do with the genre and how you can make it your own. Here are some other resources you can check out from content creators. Masterclass has a lot of really good articles. This one is for writing fantasy. I have an outline guide on my website. And then there's Michael Laron. He does YouTube videos that are amazing, and he is really helpful as far as marketing, writing tips, and just how to be an all-around good writer. And then there is the podcast Writing Excuses that I listen to almost every day that has been excellent for me to understand how to be a better writer. So here are some recommended reading. Parable of Talents by Octavia E. Butler, Kindred by Octavia E. Butler, Post Sandy by Charles Chestnut, that is a short story. Sky Full of Elephants by Sibyl Campbell, amazing. The Black Girl Survives in this one. If This Could Speak, edited by myself. Space Funk, edited by Milton Davis. The Rage of Dragons by Evan Winter, and Unkindness of Ghost by River Solomon. Cayenne Masters by Devon Sanders. How Long Until Black Future Month by N.K. Jemisin, The Unbroken by C.L. Clark, Black Sun by Rebecca Roanhorse, The Reformatory by Tanana Rivdu, Beloved by Toni Morrison, and of course, check out Fire Literary Magazine for Black speculative fiction. We have new issues quarterly. And there's more to explore, of course, not just in literature. If you look at television and movies, then you'll get a lot of really great examples of Black speculative fiction. Sinners, which is a Black Southern Gothic new movie that has had a lot of critical acclaim and shows just how much people want Black speculative fiction. Get Out, this is the one that's a little bit older, but it's still an amazing example of Black horror and what happens when you center Black characters and the Black experience and just how horrific that can be. Lovecraft Country does something really similar with its elements of horror, taking from Black experience and showing what horror looks like through the lens of Black people in America. Um, the original author is, of course, a huge racist, but taking his original content and twisting it into this really beautiful series just blew my mind, and I was so disappointed that it was canceled. And then we have Black science fiction with like the series like Blade. I love to see more Black vampires, more Black werewolves. There's no tired genre until Black people have exhausted it as well. So let's keep in touch. You can join my newsletter for a free copy of If Fisk Could Speak. You just go to my website and sign up, and then you can find me on Threads, Instagram, Blue Sky, TikTok, Facebook, and YouTube. If you just go to tonjakjohnson.com/links, you'll see all of my information there. Thank you for coming.